was acquitted just a short time ago of murder and manslaughter charges before he shot Steinle. Now, get this. He was released from a San Francisco jail despite a federal request that he be held for his sixth deportation. He already had 7 prior felony convictions. Let me tell you something the mainstream media will never tell you tonight. It was San Francisco sanctuary city policies that killed Kate Steinle. They did not obey the law. They followed these ridiculous liberal policies, and because of their stupidity and their, quote, form of justice and caring more about the rights of illegal convicted felons, tonight Kate Steinle is dead and her family has received no justice. Here's the attorney for the illegal immigrant right after the verdict taking a shot at the president. Really?
For those who might criticize this verdict, there are a number of people that have commented on this case in the last couple of years. The Attorney General of the United States, the President and Vice President of the United States. Let me just remind them that they are themselves under investigation by a special prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and they may themselves soon avail themselves of the presumption of innocence and the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I would ask them to reflect on that before they comment or disparage the result in this case.
I want to go through some of the details tonight, and we pay very close attention here. Now, this family of the Steinle family has been waiting more than 2 years for this justice. Now, Kate Steinle, she was arm in arm with her father on that pier. Here you have a guy, homeless at the time, claimed he found the gun with a piece of cloth under his swivel chair at a pier. And then he says he picked it up. He accidentally fired it. It ricocheted and hit Kate Steinle in the back. Well, we know a lot more about Mr. Zaretti, and that is, in fact, that because he had little experience with his guns is what his attorney was saying, but we did find out some other facts tonight. For example, he had been requested by the federal government that, in fact, he be handed over to federal authorities. They didn't do it. The reason they didn't do it is because of the sanctuary city laws that are in San Francisco. The same laws now that have been adopted by the governor of California, Jerry Brown, in this particular case. You look at his track record. You look at all of the deportations. You look at all of the felony convictions. Tonight, America has to ask a very important question. Tell us what good comes out of a sanctuary city law. People that never respected our laws and our sovereignty come into this country again and again and again and again and again, 6 times after being deported, after all those felonies, and an American young woman is killed with her father walking on a pier in San Francisco? We're going to have a lot more. Michelle Malkin joins us in a minute. Now, with a tax vote in the Senate looming, many are wondering tonight what tax reform could mean for their bottom line. Here are the statistics. As of now, this is important to every forgotten man and woman that voted in this election. This bill increases the minimum deduction to $12,000 for individuals, $24,000 for joint filers. It ends the individual mandate penalty under Obamacare. Thank goodness. It removes the alternative minimum tax. Additionally, the top marginal rate will be lowered. Not enough in my mind, 38.5%. Perhaps the most crucial part of this bill could be in the dramatic reduction in the corporate tax rates from one of the highest at 35% in the world to just 20%. And, of course, the 10% tax on repatriation for multinational corporations, foreign cash. That means trillions potentially coming into this country and factories and manufacturing centers being built for the forgotten men and women in poverty, out of work. Now, the question is, what does this mean for you? Here are some examples the mainstream media will not show you. According to estimates, a middle-income family of 4 with around $70,000 in earnings, they can receive up to an estimated 60% tax cut. A single parent with around $40,000 in earnings will likely see at least a 50% reduction in their taxes. This is real money in hardworking Americans' pockets. No, the bill's not perfect. I would have preferred dramatic across-the-board cuts like in the Reagan era, but it is an important starting point, lowering the corporate rate, spurring economic growth for decades, hopefully, to come. You listen to the gloom and doom of Democrats, this bill will destroy the middle class and end America as we know it. Watch the petty display of predictable class warfare from earlier today.
It's astounding. If the president and Republicans in Congress set out to pass a middle-class tax cut, as they claim, if that's where they set out, this bill completely misses the mark.
They keep pushing it because it's a payoff to their big donors. If the Republicans ram this thing through, they're going to explode the debt. They're going to raise taxes on hardworking families.
If the deficit goes up by $1.4 trillion, I believe without any doubt that the Republican Party will come down here to the Senate and go to the House and say, my goodness, we have raised the deficit, and in order to deal with that, we have got to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, nutrition, education, affordable housing, and every program that is important.
You've got to remember, for almost a decade, those same people you see bashing this tax reduction, this tax reform, are the same politicians that gave us the, quote, economic wisdom of Barack Obama. But, you know, what about these Democrats? What they're not going to tell you is this. What happened under the Obama economy? They'll never tell you how bad it is. We told you during the last election, under Obama, the slowest economic recovery from a recession since the 40s. 11 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, a home ownership rate at its lowest in 51 years, 50 million Americans in poverty, and an increase, as I said, of 8 million. And get this, Obama, the only president in history of this country never to reach 3% GDP growth in the country. Meanwhile, since President Trump was elected, third quarter GDP just yesterday was revised upward 3.3%, the highest rate in 3 years. In October, 261,000 jobs were created, nearly 2 million now since President Trump was elected. Unemployment, a 17-year low. Consumer confidence, 17-year high. Median existing home prices for all housing types in October 2017, up 8.7% since January. The stock market today, another record, all-time record. Based on that alone, who do you trust? The Obama sycophants that gave us these failed policies? Their cohorts in the liberal media? Their friends on the left side of the aisle? They want this bill to fail when they failed all of us for 8 years? Or what about this president that has literally put confidence in the heart of American corporations by getting rid of Obama regulations and red tape? We now have seen what economic growth could mean and what an economic turnaround could be. This bill must pass. Our economic future depends on it. We're going to discuss the tax bill also later on the show and also bring you a vote. In fact, we'll update you any votes that happen in the Senate throughout the night. Now we turn our attention also to the ongoing nightmare that is NBC News today. It has been 1 day since Today's Show host Matt Lauer was abruptly fired. Now multiple women have come forward with shocking allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse against the longtime morning host. Some of these allegations include exposing himself to a staffer, demanding that she perform a sex act, giving an adult toy as a present along with a note suggesting that it be used in front of him, and one instance where Lauer summoned a married staffer to his office where he had sex with her until she passes out, and then Lauer reportedly took the woman to see a nurse. Earlier today, Matt Lauer has issued an apology with a caveat stating that some of the allegations are, quote, untrue or mischaracterized. Now, more damning tape also surfaced indicating that Lauer's misconduct was going on for a long while and may have been an open secret at the Peacock Network. Take a look at this clip from Lauer's former co-host, Meredith Vieira, where she talks about his in-office bag of sex toys. Watch this.
I have to say, I went into your office once. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Snooping, and you had a huge bag of sex toys, and do you remember this?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, you did.
Wait a minute.
In your closet.
Wait a minute. Okay, can we explain what happened? Because you were there. We had a guest on the show who was what was she, a sex therapist. And so when she left, I think you did the segment, actually.
I didn't.
And when she left, she gave each of us a shopping bag of stuff.
I didn't get a bag of stuff.
True story.
Also this clip, Matt Lauer, an awkward interview with Anne Hathaway where he obsesses over a, quote, wardrobe malfunction. Let's take a look.
Anne Hathaway, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Matt.
Seen a lot of you lately.
Sorry about that.
You were.
I'd be happy to stay home, but the film.
Let's just get it out of the way. You had a little wardrobe malfunction the other night. What's the lesson learned from something like that, other than that you keep smiling, which you always do?
Well, it was obviously an unfortunate incident. Yeah, so let's get back to Les Mis.
One of the most creative turns of a question I have ever heard.
And earlier today, a reporter from Variety told CNN that Matt Lauer's behavior was well known by NBC employees. Take a look.
High-level executives were told about his behavior, both current and prior. Our sources say it wasn't even considered a secret. It was known by many employees at the Today Show, including some employees that have gone on television and said publicly, we had no idea. According to our reporting, some of the other personalities and on-air personalities were aware of these allegations. According to our sources, the co-anchors were aware of some of these allegations. And so they're having trouble reckoning what some of these anchors said in private conversations versus what was said on TV yesterday.
Current anchors or former anchors?
Both. This isn't the end of the story, no. We believe that there will be more women coming forward, and we believe there will be more evidence about who knew what when that will come out in the reporting in the days to come.
Okay, what did the folks at NBC know? When did they know it? NBC News chairman Andy Lack is, quote, deeply saddened by this turn of events, but are Lauer's actions really a turn of events or just business as usual for the embattled former morning host? And then there's the current fake news CNN chief, Jeff Zucker. He served as the head of NBC News during many of Lauer's allegations of misconduct. Zucker's now saying that, quote, I didn't know this, Matt. So was Zucker in the dark, or did he turn a blind eye? These allegations against Matt Lauer, they need to be investigated fully. But if true, those who knew about this and possibly enabled this behavior should be called out. Now, with allegations abounding, well, all of the stress at NBC News seems to be getting to crazy liberal Joe Scarborough, especially after Trump made this accusation in a tweet. So now that Matt Lauer is gone, when will the fake news practitioners at NBC be terminating the contract of Phil Griffin? He runs MSNBC, the conspiracy network. And will they terminate low ratings Joe Scarborough based on the unsolved mystery that took place in Florida years ago? Investigate. Well, earlier today, liberal Joe had a complete mental and emotional breakdown on national television. Watch.
We are facing a showdown with a nuclear power, and you have somebody inside the White House that the New York Daily News says is mentally unfit, that people close to him say is mentally unfit, that people close to him during the campaign told me had early stages of dementia. When is this the right time to talk about a mentally unstable president in the White House and a nuclear showdown with another unstable madman in North Korea? Everybody around Donald Trump knows he's not stable. Everybody around Donald Trump knows he's not stable now.
Kelly.
Everybody.
I know for a fact that's not true. By the way, now we have Dr. Liberal Joe. He's diagnosing on television in the morning. Now, instead of worrying about a nuclear holocaust with North Korea, maybe Liberal Joe, maybe he should worry about getting his emotions in check and not letting this obsessive, compulsive, nonstop hatred of President Trump send him over the edge. Joe, you need help. There's a lot more in terms of serious news that you should be covering. By the way, no one should worry that Liberal Joe and his allegations, by the way, and his friends in the Democratic Party, well, maybe, Joe, you should be asking questions about that, because the Senate Ethics Committee has now opened a preliminary inquiry into the groping allegations against Senator Al Franken. Now, this comes after yet another woman, an Army veteran, has come forward to accuse Franken of groping her during a USO tour in 2003. And while Franken faces even more allegations, his colleagues in the House, well, John Conyers in particular, he's now facing growing calls to resign after multiple sexual harassment allegations and accusations, including involving a taxpayer-funded settlement. Even his longtime defender, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, she's miraculously now done a complete 180. Today, she's now calling for Conyers to step down. Watch this.
The allegations against Congressman Conyers, as we have learned more since Sunday, are serious, disappointing, and very credible. It's very sad. The brave women who came forward are owed justice. I pray for Congressman Conyers and his family and wish them well. However, Congressman Conyers should resign.
Remember, this comes less than a week after Nancy Pelosi defended Conyers, called him an icon, talked about due process. I guess now she suddenly remembered that she considers herself a champion for women's rights. And meanwhile, John Conyers, who is now hospitalized with stress-induced symptoms, apparently, is remaining defiant. He's still denying the allegations. Earlier today, his lawyer fired back at Pelosi. Watch this.
It is not up to Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi did not elect the congressman, and she sure as hell won't be the one to tell the congressman to leave.
We'll have more on these Democratic scandals that are plaguing them later tonight in the show. But first, we have a lot more on our top story. Kate Steinle's killer found not guilty, now walking free. Kate Steinle, killed back in July of 2015, walking arm in arm with her father on a pier in San Francisco, shot and killed by an illegal immigrant, Jose Garcia Zarate. This man had 7 prior felony convictions, 4 involving narcotics. This was his facing of a 6th deportation at the time he shot and killed this innocent woman. This illegal immigrant said he accidentally killed her. He said it was an accident that the bullet ricocheted off the concrete and hit Kate Steinle. His lawyer says he found the gun just moments before he shot her. And it gets worse. He says his client had never fired a gun before and got scared after it went off. What did he do? He threw it off the pier, and they found it the next day. And as I said at the top of the show, sanctuary cities tonight, those that support them, they are to blame for the death of Kate Steinle. With reaction now, host of Michelle Malkin Investigates. Michelle Malkin, you look at all of this in detail, all of this here. This guy, 6 deportations he was facing. The federal government said to San Francisco, turn this guy over, and they refused to obey the law.
Sean, my outrage is laden with melancholy because I have reported and investigated on so many of these cases over the last 25 years, and there has been so little, if any, accountability for people in the federal, state, and local government who have blood on their hands. Kate Steinle and her family never wanted or wished for the publicity that they've gotten, the pain that they've suffered, and the fact that they have no choice but to be front and center in the headlines as they suffer as a result of this verdict. This really is, I think, a damning indictment of so-called San Francisco values. Where is Nancy Pelosi tonight? Where has she been for the last 25 years? This is her city, and it is her open borders policies that have haunted so many innocent people and innocent lives in San Francisco. And it is the conversion of America into a sanctuary nation instead of a sovereign nation that has endangered us, and it is one of the primary reasons that President Trump was elected in the first place, because people made a choice after seeing this fork in the road, after seeing both political parties, Sean, both Republicans and their big business donors and Democrats and their identity politics grievance mongers who don't care about the rule of law in this country, and the collusion between those two things that have created sanctuary policies and a sanctuary nation that still exists to this day. When will the city and county sheriff in San Francisco and that mayor and the governor ever be held accountable for the deaths as a result of bloody open borders?
He spent much of his life, adult life, behind bars. 6 times, as I said, he was going to be taken out. He actually said once he had aimed at a sea animal. He said another time that it fired when he stepped on it. I've been a pistol marksman since I'm 11 years old. Guns do not go off by themselves. There can be accidental shootings, a sea animal, and then you change your story. Here, there's a word for that. That's called lying. That's called,
yes.
They're not even close to being the same story.
That's right. It strains credulity, the story that the defense attorney told, and let me get back to him in a moment with his comments after the verdict, which were absolutely disgusting, some of which you showed. But the idea that he simply happened upon this weapon and it was, oopsie, an accident, when there were witnesses that testified at the trial that they saw him twirling the gun around recklessly beforehand and then scurrying away when the police were looking for who it was that caused Kate Steinle to fall to the ground and be shot in the back when she was, as you said, walking arm in arm with her father on a happy day. The idea that this defense attorney now is politicizing, no, Sean, that any discussion of immigration policy and Jose Zarate's 5 prior deportations, the detainer that was ignored by city and county officials, the pending 6th deportation, the 7 felony convictions, including 4 narcotics convictions, none of that was allowed to be presented to the jury. No wonder they ended up with the verdict they did.
All right, Michelle Malkin, the federal government had requested, and thank you for your time tonight, requested that when he was released from the San Francisco jail that he be handed over to the federal government. The sanctuary city laws prevented them from doing that. This was his 6th deportation. How do you get back in the country? Because of wide open borders. He spent 46 months in jail. The feds requested that he be handed over so he can be deported again. And in the process, an innocent woman is dead. Huge breaking news tonight. We have a lot to cover. We'll have a live report from San Francisco on Kate Steinle's killer being set free. More on the looming showdown on Capitol Hill. The latest out of NBC with Matt Lauer. Stay with us. He said he was aiming at a sea animal, and then he claimed later that he stepped on it.
The defense certainly made much out of Mr. Zarate's conflicting statements that he made to the media, that he made to the press, and they took issue with some of the police translations as well. So the defense did a great job, Sean, picking apart this sort of muddled confession and these statements about shooting at sea lions and stepping on guns and so forth. But what a stunning end here to this case that many had considered a referendum on illegal immigration and sanctuary city policies. But at the end of the day, here in San Francisco, remember, this was a local murder case with mostly circumstantial evidence. And the fact that the defendant, a 45-year-old Jose Inez Garcia Zarate, was a multiple felon and deportee and who was protected by San Francisco's decision to refuse to comply with immigration officials, none of that was presented as evidence, and the jury was not allowed to consider any of that and not to consider any politics as well when they went in to deliberate. And they had deliberated about 30 hours when late this afternoon we got the word that they had reached a verdict and decided that Kate Steinle's death was in fact a tragic accident. And now we are hearing from Kate Steinle's family, Jim Steinle, saying that they are, quote, saddened and shocked. Kate's brother, Brad, saying, quote, I'm not surprised. The system failed Kate from the start of the chain of events. Why would the verdict in this case be any different? But again, outside court, the defense team said, given the physical and the circumstantial evidence here, the jury made the right decision. By the way, Sean, the jurors quickly left after the verdict was read. They had nothing to say to reporters. I should mention that Garcia Zarate was convicted of being a felon in possession of a firearm, and that conviction does carry a sentence of 16 months, 2 years, or 3 years. The judge will make that determination at a hearing probably next month. But again, what a stunning end to this case and a big victory for the San Francisco Public Defender's Office.
All right, Claudia, thank you. And the system did fail. The Steinle family joining us now with more. Salem radio nationally syndicated host Larry Elder, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. The idea that he could say, Dan Bongino, that he was aiming, the words aiming at a sea animal, in this particular case a seal on the piers, if anyone's been out in San Francisco, and then say he stepped on it. Could this firearm, can this firearm go off by stepping on it? I understand the trigger is actually one that you really have to pull.
You know, Sean, when I was a Secret Service agent, we used this firearm. This was now we had a different variation of the round. This was a 40 caliber round. We used a 357 SIG, but this was a Sig Sauer 40 caliber handgun. And the short answer for you is, hell no. it can't go off by stepping on it, and it's certainly not going to go off by fiddling with it in a shirt like this guy. So you actually have to put some force into depressing the trigger. Folks, this is a complete travesty of justice, this case. Clearly, San Francisco told the world tonight that justice isn't blind. In San Francisco, it's political, and this is a complete travesty and an outrage.
Larry, this was supposed to be this man's sixth deportation, sixth. And then you had a federal request to the San Francisco jail where he was being held for 46 months. They totally ignored it. They ignored the law.
They did.
And then because our borders are so wide open, he just could come right back in all these times. It speaks volumes. I say that those sanctuary laws and our weak borders killed this poor woman.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Look, I didn't believe they were going to get a first-degree verdict or even a second-degree guilty verdict. I assumed it was going to be involuntary manslaughter. But the point is, he shouldn't have been here in the first place. He should have been deported. And by the way, California, the Bay Area has since changed their sanctuary city law. But if you were to apply that change to the same set of facts, he still would have been released and not deported. So California is still a sanctuary state. San Francisco is still a sanctuary city, and this person should not have been here in the first place, irrespective of the law and the facts of this particular case.
Yeah. Let me go, if I can, back to Dan Bongino and talk about this. Does this impact the DACA debate? Does this impact the need, the necessity? The president ran so hard on building a wall, now we have plans in the process of being made. In other words, blueprints for what the wall is going to be. Does this finally motivate Congress to secure the borders so that somebody can't come back 6 separate times?
You know, gosh, Sean, I really hope so. I mean, it's a troubling night. And I mean, I feel for the family. This is just a really unbelievable human tragedy. But think about what happened. We have a guy in the country illegally 5 times. He admitted to being on drugs. He admitted to at least firing the weapon. He disputes how, right? He admits to running away. He's caught on video, Sean, running away on video. He then throws the gun into the San Francisco Bay, and then he gets in front of a San Francisco jury and is even acquitted, Sean, of involuntary manslaughter? I mean, how do you look the American people in the eye? I'm serious. If you're in that jury and say justice was done tonight to this woman who, by the way, Sean, her aorta was severed as a .40 caliber round went through her back and pierced her aorta. I mean, come on. If this doesn't change the debate, Larry, nothing will.
I agree with what Dan's saying here. A 7-time convicted felon, 6 deportation this was going to be. And I just ask everybody that's watching TV tonight, put yourself in the place of this young woman, or the parents, or the family, and the friends of this young woman. Her life was gone, and we had every opportunity to make sure this convicted felon didn't come back in. But we didn't secure our borders, and the system failed by allowing him not to be handed over to the federal government that requested him based on what the law of the land is.
Right. Well, Sean, I would hope this would be a wake-up call, but this is California. This is the same state where Jamil Shaw Jr. was shot and killed by an illegal alien who shouldn't have been in the country. And after that happened, after Kate Steinle happened, that's when the governor signed the sanctuary state bill. So these things were known, and they did it anyway. This is California. This is also the same state where O.J. Simpson butchered 2 people, a mountain of evidence, and got away with it. Robert Shaw, same thing, and got away with it. You never know what's going to happen before a jury. After the O.J. Simpson case happened, Sean, I stopped trying to predict what's going to happen. This man should not have been in the country in the first place. There shouldn't have been a trial in the first place because he shouldn't have been here in the first place.
Thank you both for being with us. The system failed. This young woman failed her family.
It absolutely
did. I got
did.
our thoughts and prayers. I'd be devastated. Everybody should be devastated for them. Think if it was your family. When we come back, Tommy Lahren, Dana Lash, Jessica Tarlov weigh in on the outrageous verdict in San Francisco. Also, we get White House reaction from Ed Henry. Also, quick programming note tomorrow morning. Don't forget, watch Kellyanne Conway. She's on Fox and Friends reacting to this Steinle verdict. More on Hannity when we continue. San Francisco before then running and tossing the gun into the bay, running from the scene of the crime. Earlier today, his lawyer sounded off on the president. This is outrageous. Watch this.
For those who might criticize this verdict, there are a number of people that have commented on this case in the last couple of years. The Attorney General of the United States, the President and Vice President of the United States. Let me just remind them that they are themselves under investigation by a special prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and they may themselves soon avail themselves of the presumption of innocence and the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I would ask them to reflect on that before they comment or disparage the result in this case.
Joining us, radio talk show host with Radio America and author Dana Lash, also Fox News contributors Tomi Lahren, Jessica Turlov. Here's the fact. 6 times, this is going to be a 6th deportation. They wouldn't hand him over to the federal government who had requested that they hand this man over. Did this sanctuary city law kill Kate Steinle?
Well, the illegal immigrant himself is the one who killed Kate Steinle. Certainly the sanctuary city policy allowed him to stay here, and I think that there will be a sea change in this. We saw it in Virginia with the race. Ralph Northam came out against sanctuary cities. I believe it was key in him winning that race.
Could you say without sanctuary cities, in all likelihood, Kate Steinle would be alive tonight?
Without the San Francisco sanctuary city policy and the way that people there, she was 32, 33 years old. Yes, I imagine she would be alive.
Borders are so porous that a man can sneak back in a 6th time or 7th time?
There are, but we know that we have a net outflow of the country.
So do you now want to build the border wall?
No, I will never want to build a border wall because it's ineffective. If you want to put more border agents there,
say that to Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi Netanyahu swears it has changed Israel. I've seen it up close.
Israel and the United States are very different. Our borders are different. Go with the gang of ape. I do not believe that. There are a number of Republicans who don't believe that. If you talk to Republican congressmen in Texas, they say that is not the case. You want to put more agents there, I'm fine with that.
Let me go to Tomi Lahren. Tomi, your thoughts?
Well, to answer Jessica's question there, physical barriers work, and that's why Democrats don't like them. But Democrats are going to be put in a very interesting situation now. They're going to have to choose between illegal immigrants and the American people. And I'm anxiously awaiting, the response of the Democratic Party, because I think it's going to really help us in 2020.
Dana, like you, I've been using firearms since I'm young. He said he was aiming this at a sea animal, and then it became I stepped on it. And then it did ricochet and hit Kate Steinle in the back. This particular Sig Sauer, it's not one that I fired. I was wondering if you have.
I have, and I thought what Dan Bongino said earlier was pretty spot on. I thought that the defense was moronic on this, and I realized that, Sean, that there are certain things that the jury saw that we, the people, didn't see. But I do find it interesting that the same people who want to look at ballistics and forensic reports as it concerns ballistics, they ignored that in the Mike Brown case. Look, and for the lawyer to also invoke Donald Trump and then falsely also say that there's there's an investigation that was based on Kremlin propaganda, which substantiated a FISA warrant, I thought was bizarre. This is moronic. People in California are not protected. The courts have said that there is no justice, no peace for the law-abiding. Those who break the law and enter illegally are given preference over law-abiding Americans. And California has now declared itself to be a dangerous state, Sean. California has decided that it wants to make it virtually impossible for law-abiding Americans to be able to choose their pro-choice right of self-defense, the feminist equalizer, a boomstick. But if you're an illegal alien and you are in that state being protected by it as a sanctuary state, well, then you're afforded all of the luxuries of American citizens, including rights that we have sacrificed for due process. And you're given a slap on the wrist that this wasn't even involuntary manslaughter is an affront to due process. It's an affront to justice and all the law-abiding citizens in California. This is shameful.
The system failed on so many different levels. If I'm President Trump tonight, I'm saying no federal dollars to any city, any state like California that says, and you just said to me, you agree, sanctuary city law wasn't in existence, this girl would likely be alive tonight. So my question is, why should the federal government give 1 penny to any city that doesn't want to obey the laws of this country?
I think that all sanctuary cities should cooperate with ICE officials.
And if they don't, should we not give them federal dollars?
That's a whole other debate, and I'm sure the president will be tweeting about this.
Give me a reason why we should. If I'm President Trump, I'm saying not a dime to these cities.
Well, there's a lot that money gets used for, that it's not just for sanctuary city policy.
Too bad. If you're going to allow criminals, seven-time felons.
Mayors in sanctuary cities all over this nation are paying attention to what happened today, and I believe they will change
I'm going to hold my breath.
Be more cooperative.
And that's not going to bring back Kate Steinle, is it?
No, it's not, and it's an absolute tragedy. We've been saying that from the beginning, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the 11 million illegal immigrants who are here out of the country, that you're going to get rid of a policy that a number of Republicans have backed, including Rudy Giuliani, who said that we need to make sure that people can come out of the shadows to cooperate with law enforcement.
Let me go to Tommy.
Well, as someone that is actually residing in California right now, I can say as a young woman living in California, this sends a very clear message to me, and that is the illegals are protected in this state and Americans are not. And these, I think that Jessica, her heart is probably in the right place, but anytime that you defend sanctuary cities, especially after this verdict has come out, I have to ask you, why would you still defend a policy that is harboring criminals? That's the end of the discussion. It's not, oh, there's a lot to look at here.
It's not the end of the discussion. When we have a national tragedy, and we have Dana on the panel who's a firearms expert, when we have a mass shooting, we don't say we need to take away all the guns because someone misused
Liberals
it.
do all the time.
They don't say we take away all the guns. We want responsible gun reform. 94% of Americans want...
I have to interject.
Well, please.
You know, law-abiding Americans are always blamed for the actions of criminal thugs like Zarate, this individual who murdered Kate Steinle. Law-abiding Americans who are Second Amendment practitioners are constantly blamed for the actions of repeat offenders like this illegal alien. But yet when the illegal alien does it, oh, it was an accident. He meant to shoot a SEAL. If only law-abiding Americans got as much courtesy and were afforded that as much as this individual was, it's never going to happen. But now you can understand why so many law-abiding Americans are so disgruntled at this.
I got to let you all go. Sad night. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers with this family. This system failed this family and this young girl. Ed Henry, next from the Capitol, will give us an update on three big stories. Also later, the war on the Trump women has reached an incredible, unbelievable new low. Ivanka Trump, the First Lady Melania Trump, they are owed major apologies. I'll explain.
To see you. A tough statement just in from the Attorney General on the Kate Steinle verdict. Jeff Sessions saying in part that cities choosing to put, quote, criminal aliens to the streets rather than turning them over to federal immigration authorities put the public safety at risk. I can tell you Republicans I've spoken to on Capitol Hill tonight are already saying this verdict could give the president a new impetus to push his get tough policies on illegal immigration, a key part of his agenda. Another key part of that agenda, of course, tax cuts. The president got good news today when John McCain said he will support them. Remember, McCain sunk the president's push to repeal and replace Obamacare. His support on taxes makes it very likely the president will get a victory on that as early as tomorrow. The president has already been touting a stock market that has been on fire lately. The Dow today seeing its 63rd record close of the year, could be going even higher. And when you see the details in this bill, for example, the corporate tax rate will be dropping from 35% to roughly 20%. And on the personal side, there have been claims that this helps very few people. But the Joint Committee on Taxation just put out a new report saying 60% of U.S. households will get a tax cut. 8% approximately will pay more. Now, Democrats jumped on that same study, that committee saying that the economic impact will not be very strong and that this will strongly increase the deficit. Republicans pushing back on that today, saying that they are undercounting the impact on the economy. That will be hashed out tomorrow with a likely final vote in the Senate on Friday. Bottom line, the other big story tonight, reports out of North Korea that the North Koreans may, Sean, be willing to negotiate about its nuclear weapons program. That is a bit of a surprise. Remember earlier this week that missile launch suggesting that North Korea could reach various U.S. cities. There are nuclear experts tonight saying this may be a sign that Kim Jong-un just wants to show that he has a deterrent, but doesn't want to actually use those missiles and weapons as an offensive weapon against the U.S. and others. Remember, President Trump has said he does not want to negotiate with Kim Jong-un. But this sign tonight that maybe the president's tough rhetoric has been working with North Korea might lead him to the table, Sean.
It sounds to me like Kim Jong-un doesn't want to be obliterated, which would have to happen. There's not a lot of good options there. Ed Henry, thanks for being with us. Joining us now with more reaction, White House Senior Advisor for Strategic Communications, Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes, when you look at the 60+% of Americans that are going to see a significant reduction in their taxes, by the way, because I live in a liberal state like New York, I'm not one of them, because state local taxes no longer deductible. But really, all these years, states like Florida, Texas, no state income tax have kind of been subsidizing these big spending, big taxing liberal states like California and New York, right?
Right. I mean, you got to think about what the president here is committed to, and he's committed to ensuring that middle-class families receive a tax cut. And that was one of his primary focuses, in addition to making sure that they simplify the tax code and also to ensure that they reduce the corporate taxes. As you know, when you lower those corporate taxes, Sean, the benefits, many of them go to the American worker. You're starting to see actually investments building in factories. You're starting to see communities that are going to be revitalized, because when you have more of these investments, more of these corporations coming back to the United States, not planting themselves out in other countries, but really coming back to what we call the American model, it's a huge benefit for these communities that have really been strangled under what we would call so much regulation under the Obama years, not enough economic growth. And what are we seeing? We're seeing consumer confidence up, businesses optimistic. And so there's really this sense, as President Trump has said, the rocket fuel economy, where you're really going to see by year 10 the GDP between 3 to 5% growth. That is real economic growth. That is real results.
I've got to imagine the president who ran so strongly on the issue of securing our borders and sanctuary cities. And by the way, the Cates Law was passed in the House, one of the many bills that haven't been taken up in the Senate, about 300 of them. And I hope this tax bill becomes a wave of work now, maybe a sense of urgency of McConnell and company. And I ask you this, I can only imagine this is only going to fuel the desire of this country to protect innocent people here. With this being a 6th deportation, they requested the turnover. He was in custody. Open borders allowed him back in every time.
Well, I got to tell you, I remember when President Trump during the campaign said, "Where's the sanctuary for Kate Steinle?" I mean, let's think about that, Sean. I mean, this is an important moment right now where we are outraged by what we are seeing. Obviously, what we have noticed is the fact that there is this incredible need for the end of sanctuary cities. This is something the president has pushed through in his principles on immigration, and it's something that he's focused on, as well as in closing the loopholes and ensuring that we're going to enforce our immigration laws. This is incredibly important, in addition to border security. Why? Because when you look at these jurisdictions, they refuse to hand this criminal alien over to the federal authorities, and the cities didn't honor an ICE detainer. What happens there is that you have innocent lives lost, innocent blood shed, and because of that, Kate is not going to be with her family during Christmas. And that is why the president, his primary focus is to ensure the safety of the American people.
I got to let you go. Congrats on the new position, by the way. We appreciate it. When we come back, the media stoops to a new low, attacking Melania, Ivanka Trump. Wait till you see this. It's outrageous.